Good evening. My name is Mariah, and we're going to talk about philosophy and neuroscience and psychology. So, we know philosophy tends to be about the thought processes, right, wrong, and just generally situations that we mull over in our head. There's not a whole lot of scientific data behind it, unless you count like polls on what responses are. That I found for this assignment. Um, Neuroscience obviously is kind of how the noggin works, the different chemicals, parts, wavelengths that coincide with different stimuli. And then psychology obviously is the emotional portion of humanity. Um, our reactions, how it makes us feel, and the general consensus between um, emotion and all of those fun things. So I have been interested in the brain for philosophy since the very beginning. I think I did everything I could on it for this class. So a big portion of philosophy in neuroscience and psychology is issues. Giving somebody that train track question, where one person from your family or that you love is on one track and you have a whole car of other people on the other track, and what do you choose? What's the right answer? Well, there is no right answer because it's situational. Everybody's different. Everybody has different relationships. Everyone has different consciences that they'd be able to handle. And that's a lot of what this topic tends to be. There was a study done by the University of Manchester where they took people and they put them in an MRI and they gave them dilemmas similar to this, where, what do you do in this situation? How would you respond to this? And with that, they found when someone was hurt in a dilemma, there was a higher brain activity in the emotional portions of our brain. People felt empathetic to that situation, or they were able to kind of feel that guilt or that stress that comes with loss a little bit, or with something like you caused this, that consequence feeling that tends to come with, a little angel and devil on our shoulders. But it was even they had even higher activation in those areas when someone got hurt indirectly. So with that train track, they felt even more morose because whichever they didn't pick got hurt. Even though they saved that one person indirectly, the other group was the one that suffered, and they had to feel that uncomfortableness. And it read in the more emotional portions of our brain, which is super cool. So our bodies run on hormones and chemicals and neural synapses and receptors and all of these fun whole other topic full of words. And Patricia Churchland, who is a neuroscientist who deals with a lot of philosophical things. I think neurophilosophy is the word that this podcast I use really kind of umbrellaed her under. And it's really cool because her whole families are, I don't want to say head cases, I almost did. But they all study the brain and different capacities. But in this podcast, which I recommend wholeheartedly, she talks about how a lot of philosophers use that black and white, actions have consequences mentality, but she thinks she thinks that that's the problem with philosophy, and I agree. She talks about how they don't take into account empathy. empathy, which is how we are able to see a situation and kind of understand it. Not necessarily 100% because we never know what someone's thinking or how they're handling a situation or all of the details because we are third party people, but we are able to on some level match that energy a little bit and be able to humble ourselves, bring ourselves to that situation so we can bring them comfort. And she talks about how empathy is a very mammalian emotion or feeling or reaction to a situation, whichever you please. And a big part of that is because of oxytocin, which is the love hormone. It's also referred to as the cuddle hormone in this, which I find adorable. But with that release of oxytocin and our ability to be empathetic, we also are able to kind of introduce grayscale into how we think and react to situations. Like stealing, we know is wrong. But what if someone has nothing and that's the only way they live?